All right, so how did everything start with being Peruvian? I'm originally from Cusco, Peru, and if you probably heard of Cusco, or if your friends from the US talk about Cusco, for them, it could be a place that you can go to before you go to Machu Picchu. And to me, Cusco is like a lot more than that. Basically, I was born and raised in Cusco until I was 14. And my whole childhood, basically, in Cusco was a defining moment for who I was going to be here and who I am today. And just giving more context, my parents were street vendors, and if you were a family in Cusco, you only had two options. You could either be a tour guide or you could start selling on the streets. And yeah, so like many families who couldn't really afford to have a living, they basically started selling their handmade stuff on the street. And yeah, it was pretty rough for a few years for them. And my siblings had to struggle with like the whole like not having or not being able to have lunch on their table for many days. And yeah, I mean, they had to do what they had to do to survive. And I would say that for you to picture this whole thing, imagine like nature, because I feel like when I talk about Cusco, it's like a lot of nature because I live really close to the ruins, and it was such a great time for me to just always go up there and like have fun. And if you've heard of Inti Raymi, it's basically where that happens every year. But anyways, I grew up in a city where mornings began at 4 a.m. And I remember that my mom would wake me up to get panuaro. And if you haven't had panuaro, I have a picture. This is panuaro right here. But panuaro, I feel like basically, if you haven't tried it, you should. It's just basically the best bread you can get in Cusco. It's like soft, warm, and I basically grew up in a place where it was next to a bakery, so there was an oven going like basically every morning at 4 a.m. But anyways, going back to how every morning started. So my mom would wake me up every morning at 4 a.m. And those mornings in Cusco are cold. So if you've been to Cusco, like it was freezing in the morning. And she would wake me up and tell me like, hijo, ve a comprar pan. And I'll be like, okay, um, I'll be going. And it was such a like unique experience for me because now that I think about it, well, if I would have been living in the US at that time, I don't know if that was a normal thing to do. But anyways, so I remember every morning I would go to this like lady who was next to the bakery, and she would have the pan wado basically ready. And it was such like a magical experience because in the mornings I'll be like, "Buenos dias, señora Toro," and yes, her first name translates to a bowl, and I'm not really sure how I knew everyone's names in the neighborhood, but somehow I basically just remembered that growing up, every time I would go out of my house, I would automatically know someone. So that basically says a lot. That basically says a lot about the community and how I was raised in Cusco. And I remember every morning when I was talking to Senora Toro, I would be telling her about how my school was. And I didn't realize that I was gossiping at that age. But at that time, it just felt like such a great time for me to go and like talk to her. So that basically was my mornings. And yeah, weekends were full of fun. I was lucky to like live near where Intirami happened. It's called Sacsayhuaman, and I wish I had. Oh, I have a photo. Here you go. So this is what Sacsayhuaman look, and yeah, so Intirami happens there every year. But in the case where like if you do go now, a lot of the places there are locked. But when I was growing up there, I you could basically go anywhere. And yeah, my weekends were full of fun. And I was lucky to live near that place. I remember that my dad would wake me up at 4 a.m. every weekend, and we would both go up. And it was like basically 10 minutes to go and get there. And there were no phones back then. There was no TV. We didn't have phones. We didn't have anything. So we had to be really creative. And what I would do is basically I would lift rocks because my neighborhood believed that there was gold if you like basically try to lift rocks. I don't know if it was a myth. I mean, the Incan, the pro, I don't know what happened. Maybe the gold is gone, but I never found gold. But then the hope was still there. I did find a lot of bugs, and no, yeah, it was such a great time. I remember that I would do those things every weekend, and yeah, I basically been in all my neighbors' homes because it was normal for me to be friends with their children. And even though they didn't go to the school that I went to, it was such a normal thing for me to be friends with people that were around my age and just play outside on the street because there was no tech back then. And the next part, I want to take a quick water break, but then I'm about to talk about how everything just changed and I moved to the US at the age of 14. Yeah, I'm like, this is such a relaxing session. I even have a candle because I just want to relax. And if you are at home, I, I hope you're relaxing too. But anyways, okay, going back. But at the age of 14, I left Cusco and moved to the United States. Like I've been meeting so many people lately, and we have similar experiences, which I'm really happy. And yeah, for me at that age, the first thing was I missed my friends, and at that time, my parents were moving city to city, and they were constantly adjusting to new schools, and I longed for the connection that I had back home. But my reality has shifted. Moving from a small city like Cusco to a huge city like San Francisco was a big adjustment. San Francisco's diversity was a blessing. It allowed me to explore who I wanted to be. But at 14, you just don't know who you are. And I was just beginning to understand myself. And out of nowhere, I was just basically that Peruvian kid who immigrated to the US. And every day that passed, I believed there was a reason that I was here. And I made that my mission. I was like, I'm gonna find my place. And at first, it was hard. I started to wonder if I even belonged in a city this big. Because San Francisco, it's a really big city. It has a lot of different, yeah, many neighborhoods. And to me, that was really scary. And I remember my dad had bought a computer for his work. And to me, not having any friends, I was like, can I borrow? ¿Puedo usar la computadora para jugar? Entonces, I was one of those kids that played Farmville. So if you're watching this and you played Farmville growing up, we're besties. But anyways, so at the same time, I basically found out more about these Peruvian meme pages from Peru. And this idea just basically came to my brain. And I was like, mate, what if I made something like that but about the Peruvian experience in the US. And that's what I did. I basically posted my first text post and I said something about how the struggles of growing up here in the US was. And I was surprised to see all the comments because it was basically comments from like people all over the US saying, oh my God, I have the same thing going on, but I'm like New Jersey, Miami. And I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Like the fact that we are not in the same place, but at the same time, we are experiencing the same thing. I knew that there was something in there. And yeah, that's basically how I created a dedicated page about the Being Proven experience here in the US. And over the last 10 years, Being Peruvian has grown far beyond of what I imagined. It started online, but I quickly realized that community doesn't have to exist in person. At the time, going viral meant 1,000 likes, And I remember the first post I made that got one to 1,000 likes, and I remember running to my mom and being like, "Mom, you wouldn't believe it! I got to 1,000 likes." And my mom was just like, "Te pones a limpiar tu cuarto o no sales?" And I wasn't even going out. So, and yeah, at that moment, I basically found my passion that I wanted to do for as long as I can. And yeah, to keep up with the other meme pages, because everything, once I started doing that, everything was going exponential. And at that time, I was like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to get left behind. And what I did was I taught myself design. I used Illustrator. And if you are watching and you work at Adobe right now, or if you're Adobe yourself, I'll be honest, I basically used the pirate version for most of it because I couldn't afford it. And well, I did pay my dues. I started paying in college. I still pay it right now. But anyways, moving on. So once I realized the more U.S. born speaking Peruvians were also growing up with the page, I started also shifting how the page was starting to grow. And because at first I was basically starting to only like post in Spanish, but eventually I knew that there has to be some shift because a lot of people from the US do want to share that experience, but they also speak English. So we started posting in English. And the next part is basically going to be about being Peruvian, how the struggles of managing a huge platform. Because even though I would say that it's one of the biggest blessings that I have, at the same time, it was just, it had its cons. And the best way to describe it, it was like a sibling. I'm a sibling of three, and sometimes we just don't want to see each other. So being Peruvian was like that. It was like a sibling. And a lot of times I just didn't want to do anything with it. I was like, I'm done with it because a lot of times when I was at that age, people were telling me, like, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you're not supposed to do. And a lot of people were mean about it. And I was like, come on, like I'm just a 15-year-old. Like, why are you trying to be so mean? I'm just doing this for fun. But anyways, it basically became too much for me because I was like, am I not proving enough? Because people were telling me like, you're not proving enough. You left. You're not proving. And as a teenager, those comments really hurt. But I feel like the more I grew up, for example, in college, I began studying pre med, but eventually I found my true passion in design because I realized that I was doing pre med for the wrong reasons. Because every time I wanted to do something, I was just always thinking like, my parents came here for like me to achieve something really big. And to me, that was like maybe they want me to study law or maybe they want me to study medicine. To me, I was just like, oh, I like helping people, so I'm gonna do medicine. And that's what I basically did for the first 2 years. And then I was like, I don't think I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I don't want to get myself into debt. So I dropped out. I dropped out of college, let's say 3 times, because every time I wanted to try and learn something new, and college was not teaching me that. So I went into the real world to try to like see if I can find something in a place where I can learn. But yeah, so the third time I took a design class for the first time. Completely different than my other classes because my pre-med class felt like all of us were competing with each other, but the design class was completely different. It felt like a collective community where everyone was there to learn. And if you didn't know anything, you could just ask someone. And to me, that basically shifted my whole like mindset. At that moment, I was like, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe this is what my calling is. And yeah, as I grew, being prudent grew with me. And I would say that everything that I learned, I brought back to being Peruvian. Every skill I learned, basically everything. And the mission changed a lot because I wanted to focus more on a positive impact. And I learned at a young age to block out any negativity. Like there were times that I was worried. I don't like people are still being mean in the comments, but at the same time, I was like, that's not like remember, the mission is to have this platform for that one person. And I'm about to explain how I learned that, because I feel like life is just funny how it works, because everything that I've gone through has taught me something really big. And yeah, so a few months ago, if you are new or if you've been following the page, you're probably surprised because there's a new phase. Before there was several phases, and for a long time there was a phase that we had, and we decided to go different ways. But this time, I was chosen to be the face, and I was just like thinking, what can I say about this? Because it is really important to have this sort of representation everywhere. Because back then, I just didn't see myself that I was the Being Peruvian experience. Like I didn't consider myself being Peruvian. I was like, someone else can be being Peruvian. I don't think I can do it. But yeah, so I worked at LinkedIn before I decided to leave and focus on being Peruvian. LinkedIn, I was basically a product designer where I created tools for creators, for millions of creators. And if you posted ever at LinkedIn, I basically probably designed one of those tools. And yeah, and the whole time there, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome, just because like everyone was like, "Oh, you're a creator, right?" Or you post stuff, and I was like, "No, like I don't make videos," but I'm like, it was weird. I just never saw myself as a creator. And I remember that at LinkedIn, one of my goals was like to say yes to everything, and that's what I basically reminded myself, like, there's not many people that look like you on LinkedIn, and it has to be your responsibility to be able to take every opportunity and say yes to everything that they give you. Um, what a break. Yeah, let's move on. One day at LinkedIn, I was asked to speak on a group of students here in San Francisco who wanted to break into tech. And my first thought was, I am not the best person to do that. Like how can I be someone to talk to students if I don't even I'm a kid. Like, who am I to be able to talk in front of people? But at the same time, I was like, remember, that's not the goal. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, just do it, and I'll do it. I just remember leaving that conversation and being like, why? Why did I just say yes to that? Because I don't know. I would say that I was always like on like the back of the operations side, and I always liked doing that. And I never saw myself like putting myself out there like that. So yeah, it was like an interesting, like, sort of like few minutes that I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I even gonna talk about? And on the day of the event, I kept reminding myself, like, you made it this far. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And the 10 minutes before, I was like looking up, like, what's the emergency that I can tell everyone to get me out of this? And I just remember going into the room and like sitting on the chair and like seeing everyone coming in. And most of them were like Asian, white, and there were I scanned the whole room and there were no Latinos. And I just remember introducing myself and I said, "Hi, I'm Christian and I work on tools that helps millions of users at LinkedIn. If there's any Latinos here, I'm especially proud to be speaking to you. Shout out to my fellow Peruvians." Everyone looked at each other and they were like, it's just quiet. The whole room was like silence. And I was like, this is going on my list of the most embarrassing moments in my life. And anyways, so I just moved on. I went through like the whole like panel and I spoke about my experience working in tech. And when I was about to leave, this person approaches me and he's like, "Eres de Peru?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, "Sí, sí, sí." And I remember him being like, "Wow, that's crazy." Like seeing other Peruvian, like who is in tech. And I was like, "What? Like, are you Peruvian too?" And then he was like, "Yeah, no, like I am." And like, I was like, "What?" Like, that was just crazy to me because I thought that I just went through the most embarrassing moment in my life, but it was just, that was just needed. And to me, that basically taught me that it only takes one person. Like, even though it may be like so many people looking at you, like people that look at my videos, but it only takes one person for you to be like, wow, like you are actually making a difference. And that's what basically taught me, now that I make videos. Because even though I get so many comments, so many likes, there's always just someone that comes up to me and tells me like, this basically helped me in my childhood, or like it basically made me feel not alone. And to me, those comments really get to me. Like, I'm like trying so hard not to cry at the moment, but at the same time, I'm just blessed that I was able to start on this journey. And yeah, at the end of the day, we all crave connection, whether we're moving to a new country, starting a new job, or trying to figure out who we are. We want to feel like we belong. It's a deep human need to be part of something bigger than ourselves, a community where we feel understood, supported, and seen for who we are. For me, being Peruvian became that community. What it started as a simple post, meme, post turned into a place where people could share experiences, find common ground, and know that they were not alone. And that's community for me. It's basically lifting each other, sharing stories, and building something meaningful together. And no matter where we come from and where we're going, we're always going to be searching for that sense of connection. We're humans after all. And yeah, this basically is a reminder that even though in the hardest times, we're never truly alone. Like, there is always someone going through that as well. But yeah, I basically was able to finish this whole 4 pages. And the last thing I'm going to say is that today, I stand here as a reminder that community can be found anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. And I hope that by sharing my story, I inspire you to find or create your own community, a place where you can feel like you belong, just as I have. Yeah, that's pretty much how Being Peruvian was created, and now we're here. And I'll leave the next 4 minutes for any questions from the people that are watching. But thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. I know that this is going to be like a, because I just started making videos recently, and the fact that I'm like already making a conference, that is really like, wow. I'm really thankful for the opportunities that people have been providing to me. But yeah, I'll be going to Peru soon, and I'm really happy to be able to go back after 10 years. And I cannot wait to be here eating Peruvian food and just catching up with people. But yeah, that was pretty much everything on my agenda for today. So if there's any questions, please let me know. But yeah, maybe I'll just basically, if you are in SF and you want to meet up, I'll be going to the conference on the Google building around 4 p.m. So if you want to say hi or something, I'll be there. But yeah, thanks everyone. Meet and greet. At a Peruvian restaurant. That'll be nice. I'm always down for Peruvian food. Wait, oh wait, I forgot. If you want to connect to LinkedIn, I'm gonna share my stuff really quick. Let's see. Share screen. Okay, so this is what my LinkedIn looks like. If you basically want to search me up, that's my name right there, Diego Christian Tito. And yeah, please feel free to connect. And let's love this session so much. You guys are so nice. Also, what do people do when they finish early and there's no question? There's a Q&A actually. Any plans of building something in Peru? Um, TBA. That is something that I cannot wait to share in the future. It's going to be great. I'll be launching something big soon, so I cannot wait for everyone to see it. That's all I can say. What is your biggest thing from your audience that has surprised you? I was just talking about this to someone last night, and I realized that it's the honesty because Peruvian people can be really honest. And I love that because I always just like seek for feedback, and I always just go to the platform to ask for feedback, and they just tell me how, like, straight up how things are, which I really appreciate because I don't know. I've worked in places where they sugarcoat it a little bit. I'm like, just tell me how things are. But anyways, okay, my time is up. So it was nice seeing you all, and I'll see you guys somewhere. Bye.